A Football Friday here on Birds 365 as the countdown to the opening of training camp continues. And we've got with us a guy who will be there every day, standing next to John McMullen, or standing as far as possibly away from John McMullen. That would be his own choice. Martin Frank from the Delaware News. Been a minute since we've had Martin on. How's your summer been, Martin?
Pretty good. Yeah, kind of relaxing. And it's hard to believe that it's just about over. But yeah.
Well, do we know officially, Martin? We still don't know the schedule, so we do know they're gonna report, but I think it's kind of ironic that we don't have a schedule yet. What do you make of that? We were talking about it. I don't think it has anything to do with competitive advantage, or I just think they're like, we'll get to it when we get to it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. It is kind of funny because last year Nick Sirianni started this thing where, they would practice for like 2 days in a row. Then they'd have a walkthrough on the third day. And, he kind of would always say that was because they discovered a lot of the injuries that have happened, like the soft tissue injuries, happen on the third day of practice. So I would assume it's kind of like that. Like if their first practice is next Wednesday, they'll practice Wednesday, Thursday, have a walkthrough on Friday. I mean, it seems easy enough to set that kind of schedule, especially, later in training camp when they're, hosting the Browns for a week and the Colts the last week of the preseason. So you can just kind of like set your watch by it basically. And maybe they just haven't gotten around to sending out the schedule, but unless they're doing something revolutionary, which I doubt they would be doing, considering they just went to the Super Bowl.
Oh, they know the schedule. They just haven't released it to the public for whatever reason. I just can't figure out why, other than,
See, I'm sticking with competitive advantage. John is dismissing that. I think that's what it is. I don't understand it. I don't agree with it, but that's my philosophy, because otherwise they're just obnoxious jerks. If you're telling me the schedule is set, Eagles know their schedule, and they just don't want to tell Martin Frank and John McMullen. Well,
that's kind of my point.
Jerks.
I was trying to soft you around it.
I'm not gonna either. You gotta explain it somehow. And I don't agree with competitive advantage, but that would be better than being an obnoxious jerk.
Well, I'm glad you said it, Jody. So now I could say, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. That's probably it, what you just said, Jody.
All right. When they get on the field, Martin Frank, how much more work does the defense have to do than the offense because of the number of changes in personnel? Eagles lost a lot of guys on defense. They've replaced them. They think that they're going to be as good talent-wise when they get out there on the field. But guys got to learn the system, and they've got a new defensive coordinator. Would you not say the offense is starting significantly ahead of the defense?
Oh, absolutely. I think you're 100% correct on that. I mean, you look at the offense, and it's pretty much the same offense as last year. Even the change in coordinators. I mean, Brian Johnson's not coming from outside the organization. Mm-hmm. Brian Johnson was the quarterback's coach the last couple of years. He's known Jalen Hurts ever since Hurts was basically in diapers, maybe a little older, but you get the gist. And the offense is pretty much the same. You got the two new running backs in DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny, but the system's the same. It won't take long for those guys to adjust. The defense is going to be not only different in the fact that Sean Desai is the coordinator, but you got a lot of different pieces there. I mean, they turned over quite a bit on defense this past season. They got to learn Desai's defense, and they got to learn it quick. I mean, there's not a whole lot of time in training camp before the season starts, and that's going to be pretty much what they're going to be working on right away.
Around the league, you mentioned some of those running backs, Martin. That's been sort of the narrative as camps open around the NFL because of what's going on with Saquon Barkley and Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs. The running back position devalued as a whole. The Eagles certainly did it and do it pretty consistently. If you think about, they built a whole running back room that makes as much as Miles Sanders this year. But I want to turn. Well, I'm looking at linebackers. We get closer. They've gone too far at linebacker, in my estimation. That's the running back position of the defense. But they have DeAndre Swift. They have Rashad Penny. These guys are talented. We'll see if it works out. And even Kenny Gainwell is a pretty talented kid who kind of fell in the draft because he took off the COVID year and all that. Linebacker, it's Nakobe Dean and I mean,
your guess is as good as mine.
I think they've taken it too far at linebacker when it comes to devaluation. Agree with that or disagree?
I mostly agree with that. I mean, Nakobe Dean, from what everyone was saying, was ready to play last year. He was just stuck between, behind two veteran guys in TJ Edwards and Kaiser White. But the other guy, Nicholas Morrow, was a starter last year for the Bears. I don't think he's as good as TJ Edwards, or else the Bears probably wouldn't have signed TJ Edwards and let Nicholas Morrow leave. But that's kind of how the Eagles have been doing it lately. They take a chance on a veteran guy, low-cost veteran guy. They start him. And the only problem this year is, I don't really see many solutions if Nicholas Morrow and Nakobe Dean don't work out. Last year, you can kind of make the argument if Kaiser didn't work out, they just plug in Nakobe Dean and probably wouldn't miss a beat. But I don't see that gap. I mean, I do see that gap this year as being much bigger between the guys they're projecting to start and the guys behind them. I mean, what else do you have? I mean, everyone talks about Christian Ellis from the spring where he had the 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
But I mean, the guy's never played linebacker before. Sean Bradley is a special teams guy. Davion Taylor was on the practice squad last year. They do have undrafted free agent who they like a lot from Michigan State. I think it's
Ben Van Sumeren. He's a Michigan guy, and then he transferred to Michigan State, I believe, Martin.
Yeah, exactly. So, this could be the ultimate test on what they have, how much they value linebacker, and if they need to value it maybe a little bit more than they currently do, because I think they'll get a pretty good idea right away. And maybe towards the end of training camp or the end of the preseason, maybe they just go out and try to sign a veteran if it's not working, because I don't really see a whole lot of solutions on what they have behind Nakobe Dean and Nicholas Morrow.
In addition to everything you guys just ran down, and, oh, by the way, new defensive coordinator, and, oh, by the way, new linebackers coach, DJ Elliott, who seems like a good guy and kind of gets Philly, but doesn't mean he can coach linebackers. We got no idea. If your thought is, well, we'll get him, we'll coach him up. Well, we don't even know if the coaches are capable of doing that. So linebacker is a very legitimate question for the Eagles coming into the season. The other one that people worry about is the safety position coming into the year. Reed Blankenship was a great find last year. They bring him off the undrafted free agent heap. Don't give him much of a bonus to come in, makes the team, is starting when CJ goes down with an injury. And people are just expecting, well, he's going to do exactly what he did last year. And I would probably be in that group. Are we being overly optimistic? Is just okay, well, at least we have Blankenship. We know he was there. We know he started. We got a free agent coming in from Pittsburgh, a drafted player in the 3rd round. But the staple, and again, it seems so weird to talk about a guy who a year ago we were going, yeah, he's not going to make the team. He can't body was the word that John used in the first segment. That's what Reed Blankenship looked like a year ago, a can't body. Now he's the given at the safety position. Are we overestimating what Mr. Blankenship's role in this defense is going to be?
I wouldn't call him a given to start at safety. I mean, I think they drafted Sidney Brown for a reason in the 3rd round, and a lot of it was because of his intelligence and his football IQ. So I think if Sidney Brown has a good camp and shows that he's ready, I think he's going to be given every chance possible to start this season, maybe even from week 1. I mean, maybe that's just me, but I would be surprised if Sidney Brown is not starting week 1
Wow.
next to Terrell Edmonds. I just think they like him that much, and I think they really wanted to draft a safety who would have a chance to start this year. And I like Reed Blankenship. I thought he did a great job in the 5 games in which he replaced GJ last year and everything. But I don't know. I don't see him as a long-term starter in the NFL. I think he'd be a great guy to have on the roster. I think he'd be a great third safety and everything like that. But, I think the Eagles really want to see if Sidney Brown is good enough to start right away. And I think they hope that he is because, why else would you draft him in the 3rd round?
Speaking of CJ, Martin, when you were on Twitch the other day playing video games with CJ Gardner-Johnson,
how did I miss this? Martin's playing Twitch with former
I'm
Eagles?
joking. I'm joking. That's when CJ got in trouble and said what he said about Eagles fans. And there's a small group that he's right about, but you got to have more savvy as a player. You think the Eagles dodged a bullet with CJ Gardner-Johnson because they wanted him back. Now they weren't going to pay him the $14 million that he thought he was worth. And it turned out they were correct. Nobody else was either. But he's a handful. You think they dodged a bullet? Very good player on the field, but whew.
Yeah, I think they dodged a big bullet, to be honest with you. And I was thinking that, like, even last year when he was going through that, like, they pretty much put the decision down, between keeping him or Darius Slay. And, as we all know, back in March, I mean, they were pretty much going to release Darius Slay thinking they had a contract deal worked out with GJ. And then, they changed course. And, if you're looking at it based on that decision, I mean, Slay, yes, he's getting older and stuff, and maybe he's not the dominant lockdown cornerback that he used to be, but he's still really good. He's a great teammate. He's a good leader. They drafted Keely Ringo in the 4th round, and obviously Slay is going to be a mentor for him and everything. And like Slay gives you everything in that regard off the field that GJ doesn't. And, you just never know. I mean, a guy like, a young guy like CJ, gets a big money contract and maybe he doesn't play as well as he has in the past. I mean, that part hasn't been proven. I mean, what you're getting with Slay. And even if he's not at the top of his game like he used to be, he's still one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL.
Yeah. And man, a lot of people compare Slay to CJ because they're both so loud and boisterous. But man, Slay's like the best teammate ever.
Yeah.
I mean, he's out there in the offseason
pudding every week.
Yeah. I mean, it's even around the league. I'm sure you've seen it, Martin. There's been cornerback on cornerback crime all over the place. They're all insulting each other. Asante Samuel, our old friend, Where's Damo, is out there criticizing Sauce Gardner and everybody else and vice versa. Not Sauce, by the way, Jody. He's been rock solid. Slay's trying to get all the D-backs together and set up sort of an offensive line, what Lane does for the offensive lineman, what Von Miller does for the pass rushers. So you mentioned that mentoring aspect. Having him around for Ringo and whomever, whether it's if Greedy Williams makes the team, even those undrafted guys who are certainly going to be on the practice squad, the Eli Rickses of the world, the Kai Gardners. He is a great mentor. He tries to help people. So I think that comparison, because they're boisterous, is so off base. And he was a team captain. The Eagles, I'm with you. The Eagles dodged a bullet.
But let me ask both you guys, because you know Slay, because you're there every single day. Eagles played hardball with him, as Martin noted just a couple minutes ago. It is close to releasing Slay and signing GJ, and they eventually got a compromise deal done, which the Eagles had to have. That's why they're going to release him. Otherwise, it would have got crushed under the salary cap. I got to believe that Slay isn't 100% happy with the renegotiated contract. I think he took a haircut because of it. any chance that his mentor status might not be as good as you think? Because if he was at the happiest level when he was a Philadelphia Eagle, you got to believe that it's less than happiest now because of the push and shove these guys did last year. Any chance he's not as good a mentor as maybe you would think?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if he was unhappy, he's the kind of guy who would say if he's unhappy.
Yeah, he doesn't
Number
have a
one.
problem.
And,
What do you mean, like
two,
CJGJ? You just told me he's not CJGJ.
Well,
Yeah.
like he'll tell you, like Matt Patricia, he'll tell you he
Yeah,
doesn't like
exactly.
Matt Patricia. Like a lot of people bring up the Josiah Scott thing, the 3rd and 33, which was Josiah Scott's fault.
Yeah, it was.
And you know, a lot of fans, not all fans, thought it was Slay's fault. And Slay went on social media and said, "You don't know ball," and people took that as, you know, criticizing Scott.
Right.
And that kind of stuff. Yeah, he gets upset of it. Like I tell every athlete should stay off social media. I mean, if you're worried about, you know, why are you worried about fans who don't understand what the defense called is? So that kind of stuff, but he's not being mean to Scott. Like it's not in his nature to not help the young players. He just does. Some guys do, some guys don't. He just does.
Okay.
And I think that's an underrated aspect to his return.
And the one point I'll make about Slay and the contract is, you know, he ended up getting an extension. I mean, he was going into the final year of his contract before, like, you know, renegotiated. He got an extension. I mean, it's not like he took a pay cut. I mean, he got like some guaranteed money beyond this year. So you know,
it depends how you look at it. Obviously, the average annual value went down, to Jody's point, but he had no guaranteed money left. So technically, he got more guaranteed money than he was set to get. So it's kind of, you know,
I mean, he could have taken a chance and played out this season, or, you know, gotten released and, you know, signed somewhere else and then probably be on a 1-year prove it deal. But like at his age, I mean, I don't think he's going to get much more money than he ended up getting with the Eagles in this new deal. So I don't think he would be upset about that. I mean, he didn't take a pay cut or anything like that. He got basically his guaranteed money. It's just spread out a little bit more.
All right, Martin, will the Eagle fan base, Eagle Nation, rue this day in future, the day that Dan Snyder walked away from the NFC East? Because let's be honest, the Eagles have done well against the team from DC with Dan Snyder as their owner. He, quote unquote, won a lot of winters, but he didn't win a lot of championships and or a lot of playoff games. Is this going to be a day where you can actually look back and go, damn, wish that Dan Snyder had held on to?
Well, the way I look at it, I'm a Michigan grad and I hate Ohio State, obviously. But my favorite Ohio State coach was John Cooper. The guy won 9-10 games every year, you know, even some years 10 or 11. And as great as they were during the regular season, they always lost to Michigan.
Right.
And I was like, keep John Cooper. And then, you know, they got tired of losing to Michigan, so they fired him. And they bring in guys like Jim Tressel and then Urban Meyer. And those guys made it a point to beat Michigan. And I was kind of sad about that, obviously. So I kind of look at it the same way with Dan Snyder and Josh Harris. I mean, if you're an Eagles fan, Dan Snyder is the greatest thing because, you know, he just spends money in all the wrong places. I was reading reports recently that he was kind of in the draft room making decisions on who they should pick and everything.
Right off the yacht, goes in the draft room, usurps the personnel department. Yeah, those are great stories.
So, you know, I mean, you know, Josh Harris, you know, we've seen him with the 76ers and everything like that. I mean, the guy wants to win, and he's also smart enough to let his people make the decisions and get out of the way and just give them the money for it. So, you know, it might not be great this year with, you know, what they have there in Washington, but eventually they're going to turn that around, and that's obviously not great news for Eagles fans.
And you know, he's by far the worst owner in the NFL. Now is no longer Josh Harris. And Martin's got some Sixers experience. Josh Harris I don't think he's a great owner, but he's not terrible. So
Right.
even if you go from worst to middle of the road, that's a significant upgrade. So yeah, Washington got better, and that's worse for the Eagles. I mean,
Yep.
yeah, Daniel. By the way, what do you think of the NFL? Kills me. I mean, significant fine for Daniel, 60 million, but they bring it. All right, they found him when he got 6 billion. All
Yeah.
right, I mean,
So they know the check's going to clear.
yeah.
When he's got to pay the fine, they know the check's going to clear. He's got 6 million coming in. He's got 60 million going out. That's no problem.
He could have cleared the 60 million very early in the process, but I think it's ironic that they waited. But look at how harsh they were. They weren't harsh. I mean, for years, Martin,
like, here, you want 60 million, here you go.
Martin, you probably heard the stories when the players would arrive at FedEx Field for years. For those who know FedEx Field, our old buddy Nick Piera once got suspended, but I can say it's a freaking dump.
Oh yeah, it is.
But anyway, the opposition, you'd pull the bus in, and it's right by the cheerleaders' locker room, and Daniel Snyder would have the cheerleaders stretching to distract the players as they would come into FedEx Field. It's an open secret around the NFL. Everybody knew this kind of stuff was going on. They didn't care. They did not care. And now they go, oh, here's 6 billion. Can we have 60 million back?
And speaking of FedEx Field, like, I'm sure with Josh Harris as the owner instead of Daniel Snyder, chances are they'll get a new stadium.
Oh yeah. That'll be good.
And it'll be a nice one, and it'll entice free agents to come there. I mean, I'm not saying that, if you throw a ton of money at a free agent, he's not going to come because they're playing in FedEx Field. But, at the same time, you get an overall better view of an organization and everything. You're more likely to want to go there because you want to play in a state-of-the-art type of facility and everything. So that all, that's another reason why Eagles fans should be worried that Daniel Snyder is no longer in control and everything. Not that he should be, because he's, like John was saying, a terrible person and everything like that. But
all right, last one from me, Martin. And I seem to be out here on an island with this one. And at one time in my life, maybe you heard me say this on the radio many years ago, I was a Dallas Cowboy fan. I liked them as a kid. They had the star on their helmet. They had Tom Landry as the coach. When I was a wee lad, I thought they were pretty damn cool because they were on TV every single week. I am no longer a Cowboy fan.
That's how they indoctrinate you, Jody. Yeah.
They did. They sucked me in as a kid, but I grew up and became smart enough to realize, they got bad guys on that team. Deion Sanders, bad guy. Terrell Owens, bad guy. Bill Parcells, bad coach. I don't necessarily believe the Cowboys are a top 3 team in the NFC. Most people do. Some think they're actually number 2 to the Eagles. Cowboy fans actually think they're number 1. I don't think they're. I think it's San Francisco and Philadelphia, then a drop off, and not necessarily Dallas as number 3. How high are you ranking the Cowboys coming into the season, Mark?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I think the last time I was on this show, you had me pick like my top 3 challengers to the Eagles, maybe something like that. And I had the 49ers number 1. I had the Detroit Lions number 2, and then the Cowboys.
You got Detroit ahead of them. See, I got Seattle ahead of them.
Mocked me or something like that, or at least John McMullen did. And, but I'm kind of sticking by that. I think the Cowboys are a good team. I think, those are obviously the top 4 teams in the NFC, and I don't think it's really, I think there's a big drop off after the Cowboys.
Beware the Seahawks, Martin.
All right.
Beware those Seahawks.
Geno, baby.
I don't know if I'm a huge Geno Smith believer, but maybe. So yeah, I mean, I would think, the Cowboys kind of have some issues and everything like that. I mean, they're obviously good, and they're obviously going to win like 10 or 11 games. But, I just say I think the 49ers are good, and I think the Lions are – I don't think they're going to surprise
everybody's on the Lions. They got Denzel Mims from the Jets, Jody's Jets. That Jamison Williams suspension, that hurts.
Yeah, it's 6 games, right?
6 games.
But I think I like what they're building, and they were headed in the right direction towards the end of last season. And I think, Dan Campbell's obviously quite energetic, and he's going to inspire them and everything like that. And
they
I
have
think,
a good I love their offensive coordinator. Really inventive guy, Ben Johnson. I think he's going to be a head coach in this league pretty quickly, because I think the Lions are going to be good as well. So, and somebody's got to win that division. At MFrank NFL, make sure you follow Martin on Twitter. You can read him, DelawareOnline.com. Joe Biden's favorite newspaper, if he's still website, newspaper, whatever we say these days, if Joe's still reading. I don't want to take a shot. That's an ageism shot. I'm an old guy. I can take the ageism shot.
I think he still gets it delivered.
Still gets it delivered. You can tell he's an old guy. Still gets it delivered. You're ranking, you're going down in the lead up to training camp, the 9 most important Eagles. Where are you? I'm going to guess number 1, Martin. I'm going to guess number 1. Can I ruin it? It's going to be Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. I mean, that's he's going to be number 1. Don't have to bother reading anymore.
No, I didn't want to.
Well, you got to know
read it.
2 through 9.
Yes.
Wait, no, number 1, but how you put 2 through 9 is key.
Today was number 3.
Oh, you're already up to 3.
Well,
who was
I
number
kind of do it
3?
differently. I have it like the top 9, not including Jalen Hurts, and he's going to be like a separate story.
All right.
There's a different way to do it.
Really.
See, you outsmarted McMullen.
Yeah, outsmarted.
Good
That's
job.
not difficult. That's not difficult.
That's
you know what?
good.
I might go for the most important lists, and I've been telling Jody this. I might go Jalen Hurts 1, Marcus Mariota 2, in case Jalen Hurts gets hurt. Just from the most important aspect of it, because quarterback is so important. I mean, let's be honest. If God forbid Jalen does get hurt, Marcus becomes the most important player on the Eagles. Not the best, but the most important.
And oh, by the way, if you had Lane Johnson up there high on the list, because his importance is if he goes down, they have no one to replace him. Well, that's no longer the case because they got Dennis Kelly.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Dennis Kelly. I forgot to bring up Dennis Kelly, so I'm going to extend it. Because I'm pretty confident Dennis Kelly, you probably heard me talking, is going to make the team. If he's got anything left, I got to say, he's 34 years old. What do you think of the Dennis Kelly signing? Do you think it's relevant, or he's just here because they liked him when he was here before?
I think actually there's relevance to it because, who's the backup swing tackle if Mailata and Lane Johnson get hurt? I mean,
it's Jack right now without
Jack
Dennis
Driscoll,
Kelly.
right?
Yeah.
So, Jack Driscoll, I mean, we've seen him play before. He's done a decent job, but I mean, it's definitely a big drop off from Mailata and Johnson to Jack Driscoll.
Well, I think, to be fair, I think it would still be a big drop off from Mailata and Johnson and Dennis Kelly. Yeah. I mean, those guys are so good, but I don't think they're comfortable with Jack at left tackle. Right tackle, he can fight through it, but left tackle, I don't think they're comfortable. That's my spin on it.
I mean, it's not an ideal situation either way if something happens to Mailata or Lane Johnson, but I think they just needed more depth at tackle and everything, and I don't think they see Tyler Steen as a potential backup left tackle just yet. So, I mean, I think that's kind of what the Dennis Kelly signing means.
Martin, always a pleasure whenever we get you on. My condolences that you got to hang out in person with McMullen starting next
I feel
week.
bad for him. Martin's got to sit next to me, too. Well, who knows? They might switch up the seats. You never know. They do weird things when we're not there. Maybe you get lucky, Martin.
We'll find out whenever they send a schedule out, right?
You know what? I'm putting it on you, Frank. It's on you to figure out the conspiracy as to why the Eagles put whoever sits next to who and why they hold on to the schedule till the last possible second to screw you guys. I want an article on that. I will actually read that. I promise. I'm old and I don't read anymore either. But I will read that if you write it, okay?
All right. Promise.
Martin Frank, Delaware News, here with us on Birds 365. All right, Mac coming back. Mike Missinelli. I've had Mikey Miss on for months. We give him some downtime. He works hard during the season as the host of the postgame show here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Always love Mikey Miss's missives about the Philadelphia Eagles. He'll share with those coming up in about 10 minutes or so. So stay right here on Birds 365.